everyone, and welcome to Season 7 of the One-on-One with John Evans podcast. You can find them on nearly every beach in America. The signature blue and teal wind-driven canopies are all over the beaches along the Carolina coast. They're called the Shibumi Shade, and they are a true North Carolina success story. My guest for this debut episode is Dane Barnes, one of the 3 UNC grads who invented the Shibumi Shade. Dane shares with us the story of why it took the 3 inventors several years before they jumped into the business full time, and the lessons they all learned on the road to success. Dane Barnes, welcome to the One-on-One with John Evans podcast.
Thank you for having me, John.
How did 3 guys from Winston-Salem come up with a beach product?
So, John, I started Shibumi with my brother Scott and best friend Alex. Our family grew up going to the beach every summer. Family vacation was 1 week at the beach with grandparents and aunts and uncles and cousins, and it was our favorite week of the year. And then fast forward, eventually, as we got older, setting up the beach shade became our responsibility, and that kind of got our wheels thinking to wonder, was there a better way to do it? And then we came up with the Shibumi concept, which you see today.
A lot of people have ideas, Dane. How did yours get from here to here?
I think we were lucky in part in that, we weren't inventing a car or a rocket ship, that we were able to go to a local hardware store and a fabric store and, buy supplies. And kind of, teach ourselves how to sew. And we made the first one, and it worked surprisingly well, better than we thought. And then from there, folks just would walk up to us out on the beach and say, what in the world is this thing? And where did you get it? And we told them we made it. And they asked if we could make them one. And at first we told them no, because it was not, good enough or ready. But we had, we gained a lot of confidence from people coming up to us, just more and more people. And so eventually we said, okay. And then we started making them for beachgoers and families in 2016.
What did the early prototypes look like?
Yeah, so the very first one we ever built, we built it out of PVC conduit pipe. So it's rigid, but also a bit flexible. And then we bought fabric from a hardware store. From a fabric store, and then a friend actually gave us a sewing machine, and we taught ourselves how to sew. So that was the early one, but it was kind of 5-foot sections of pipe, so it wasn't really portable and not very easy to put together and take apart. But then we worked hard to refine the design from there into again what the product which you see today.
How many times did you try and start over again? I mean, how many prototypes were there until you were confident enough that you got out on the beach and said, all right, this is the one?
It's a good question. We have gone through countless revisions from that initial one. I think one thing that we still say to this day is that if we would have waited until the product was perfect, we still to this day would have never sold our first Shibumi Shade. We're always continuing to refine and improve. So a good example of that is we built a wind tunnel in our warehouse, which we then make sort of like car flags, like which you'll see for sports teams, and out of different fabrics and threads and stitches to see what is more durable and will hold up the best. So we're always refining the product to try to make it better and better.
The first one you sold, what did you do with the money, and what was that feeling like?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we sold 32 Shibumi Shades in our first year in 2016. And at that time, my brother, best friend, and I, we all had our day jobs, doing other things full time. And so this was kind of an evening and weekend project. And in 2016, we weren't trying to make money. We weren't trying to turn a profit. So we were essentially just selling them for the cost of the materials. We never paid ourselves. And so we just used all of that money. We didn't pay ourselves a dime. We just used it to go back and then buy more materials to make more units, and then that trend continues. We never paid ourselves a dime in 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019. We just kept reinvesting all of that money back into the business, and that we were fortunate that we were able to, kind of do this Shibumi side project on evenings and weekends so that we could keep our day jobs, which, gave us more financial security and able to kind of persist in those early years to build a company.
Well, that was my next question, because as I did some research for this, you continued to work until 2019. I guess Alex continued to work until 2019. So it's not like you guys just said, oh, we sold one, to heck with everything else, we're focusing on this. You really had to kind of get your footing underneath you, it sounds like.
That's right. I think we are just fairly risk averse people. So it didn't seem prudent to, leave our good jobs, which we loved, those companies and those careers as well. And so really only, but we also love Shibumi. So at that point on Halloween of 2019 is when we all three left our jobs thereabouts. And it was just apparent at that point that the business, that Shibumi, wouldn't continue to do as well if we didn't give it our full-time attention.
Right.
So it sounds like it was a brave, thing to leave our real job, so to speak, to do Shibumi. But really, at that point, it was a fairly sure thing for us to, transition over full-time, which we're grateful for.
Okay. Well, you sell the first one in 2016. You continue to do it on nights and weekends, basically hand sewing a lot of this stuff yourself. There had to be, or am I wrong? There had to be a time or two when one of you must have said, "Oh, I'm done. I'm out. Gone. See ya."
Luckily, not that far.
Really?
To say, we're tired of this. We can't take it anymore. But it is stressful. Just like any job, whether it's running your own business or your job, or anyone's. It is stressful and it is trying. And so we have a lot of those moments. There's a lot of uncertainty, whether it's, forecasts of how many are we going to try to sell next year, or what's the right strategy or practice to go into. But, I think we benefit a lot from, starting the company with my brother and best friend, is that at the end of the day, doing this gives us a great opportunity to work together and spend time together on those relationships, which are really important. And that, fundamentally, we all know that we have our best, each other's best interests at heart. And so it helps us push through some of those stressful times.
Can you take me to the point in time when you guys said it's time to do that? Was it around lunch? Was it around dinner over a cup of coffee? What played into everyone saying, all right, let's dive into the pool head first?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think we just realized that we were burning the candle at both ends. We had our 40-hour a week or more jobs, and then we would do Shibumi, again on evenings and weekends. And so we were just working 7 days a week all the time. And I think at that point, our sales had gotten high enough to be able to support us. And also just the trajectory that we were on, just realizing how popular this idea of a wind-driven sunshade is, that we felt very confident, at that point. And really, I think it was not only confidence, but it was just a realization that they're, stewarding the brand of Shibumi is a really important thing. And there's a lot riding on it. And so I think at that point, we had the confidence to then go full time.
What were the biggest lessons you learned along the way? You're all UNC grads. Mm-hmm. Both of my daughters are UNC grads. I know it's a great education. Mm-hmm. I know you studied business, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
But there's still something about studying it and then doing it. So what were some of the biggest lessons you were like, oh, wow, I didn't know that, and along the way?
So many. A great education at UNC, and so grateful for the broader education and at the business school. I think, one thing which we learned early on was to try to fail fast. And that means that rather than trying to come up with the perfect solution, the perfect answer to the problem, just start somewhere. Even if it's a rudimentary prototype or idea, but just start somewhere, get feedback from folks who would use the product, and then just begin to refine it. I think was probably one of our early key lessons.
I went to school for broadcast communications. And, you study theories. I studied all that, libel, slander, everything else like that.
Right.
But it wasn't until I got in an internship and got into a newsroom that I learned the things that make a newsroom tick that I've been using now for the better part of 40 years. Is it the same with you? You could study how to start a business, the ins and the outs, the expenses, the revenue. But until you get into it, did you learn just so much that you can't learn by a book or you can't learn in a classroom?
I totally agree with that. And that's our experience as well, that I think the fundamentals that I learned in studying business, in undergrad were great. And I still use those fundamentals all the time and reference them very frequently. But there is something about doing it that every business is so different. And you really, we had no experience with a product or sewing or a beach, shade industry. And so there's so much that you just really have to take a chance and, learn by doing.
How important is it for you to have this as a North Carolina product? I know you started with the mass production here, and now I think you also do it in Virginia, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
But this really launched as a North Carolina product. How important is that to you and Scott and Alex?
It's very important. All three of us are born and raised in North Carolina. We went to school at UNC Chapel Hill, and so we've always loved the state, of course, and especially its beaches. And so to be able to honor the tradition of the textiles in North Carolina, and we now have three professional sewing organizations that sew every single Shibumi Shade and now Shibumi Shade Mini. Two of those are in North Carolina, one is in Virginia, but we're so grateful for that. And it's really been a good business thing, for us to be able to develop those relationships and work with those great partners to make our products right here in North Carolina. And I think people in North Carolina and beyond really appreciate that, sewn in America piece.
How did you and Scott meet Alex? How long does that relationship, I know you've said that you're best friends, but how far back does that relationship go with the three of you?
Yeah, so our family moved to Winston-Salem when I was 9 and Scott was 6. So that was around the time that we met Alex. So we were classmates growing up in elementary school and middle school and high school. And then Alex and I were college roommates at UNC. So we have known Alex for a long, long time.
Why do you get along so well? What is it?
I don't know.
Did you play Little League baseball? Did you play middle school? Was it just around each other all the time? Or is there just something, some friends are really good friends, others are good friends. But it sounds to me like you guys have gone through, well, obviously launching a business, so you've got to be better than just good friends.
That's right. Definitely best friends. They're my two favorite people in the world. And, just like anyone, Scott and I being brothers, we certainly would fight and play sports and go after each other when we were young. But, we've just continued to develop a great relationship. And same thing with Alex, just playing sports together, like rec league sports. Alex and Scott were always better athletes than I was, but I would try to keep up with them. And yeah, we've just developed a great relationship through a lot of, decades and decades of shared experience.
How was it growing up in the Barnes household? Mom and dad in business? Mom and dad really encourage you to do this along the way, or were they really kind of telling you to take your time to launch this business?
I think more of the latter. Yeah, Dad was a banker his entire career with BB&T, now Truist, and Mom was a nurse and a teacher. And I think, like us, they were risk averse. And so when we told them that, I think they're the world's biggest fans, and Alex's parents as well, of Shibumi, and they just can't believe what has happened with Shibumi. But at the time when we were, thinking about going full time, they were a little skeptical of it, just to, wanted what was best for us. And, and it was an uncertain thing, but we luckily convinced them that, this is what we wanted to do and it was the right thing. And luckily it's turned out well.
What did a young Dane want to do when he grew up? When Dane was in high school, want to be a football player, basketball player, fireman, astronaut? What were young Dane's dreams?
It's a good question. I wanted to be a banker like my dad, and then I got into my first finance class at UNC and decided that was not quite for me. And so then I was really taken by my entrepreneurship classes at the business school, and had wonderful professors there. And we would have these, guest speakers who were entrepreneurs to come in and tell their story about starting, this business or that business, and was always really, really interested in that. Never knew what idea might strike me or if I'd ever have the opportunity, but I'm so glad that I've had this chance.
As you walked across the stage in 2009 and grabbed that diploma, what did you see yourself doing in your early 30s?
I didn't know. Just, find a job. When we graduated, the economy was not great in that, time from 2008 and then 2009. So I had a job opportunity in Raleigh with people who I really, really liked, and learned a lot from my mentors there. And the rest is history.
You had to come down to Ocean Isle Beach in July of 2021 to talk to the town council then about the shade.
Right.
At the time, the town didn't allow them. A lot of people wanted them there because they had seen them other places, had bought them even, and wanted to use them. But at the time, the town council there said, okay, we're going to do it on a trial basis.
That's right.
When you look at those kinds of experiences, are they successes? Are they the confidence builders? Or is that just part of doing business?
Absolutely. And, they're all new learning experiences. And just for context there, so Shibumis are now found in over 700 or maybe over 800 beaches in the United States, basically in every beach in the US. And again, we've just been so blown away by their popularity, never dreamed that it would be as big as it has become. And then at the time, there were, back in 2021, I guess.
July of 21.
That's right. There were only 5 beaches, to our knowledge, that had any rules prohibiting a shibumi. And they didn't specifically prohibit shibumi, but they had rules which said you can only bring a traditional umbrella. So the kind of one center pole and the circular canopy. And so we were just receiving hundreds and hundreds of messages from families, both residents, full-time residents in Ocean Isle Beach, and visitors who vacation there during the summertime, saying, hey, we really want to use our Shibumi Shade instead of just an umbrella to, give us more shade for our family. It's more portable and all of these things. And so we went down to meet with the mayor and the city council there to, tell our story and advocate on behalf of all of these hundreds and thousands of families who want to use it there. And to my surprise, there were, a dozen or so, maybe 8 or 10 locals there who were also there to speak in favor of Shibumi Shade. And, I think the mayor and the city council at Ocean Isle Beach is really thoughtful about a difficult issue, because they had it on the books for years. And long story short, that next month, they agreed to allow wind-powered sunshades on their beaches on a trial basis. And, according to what we've learned, it's been, a really great success there to give families more options and, make the beach safer as well. But yeah, definitely a great learning experience that, you really can only, I think, learn by doing it to a large degree.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that's not on page, 491 of the textbook when you're a junior either, Right.
I didn't encounter it. I'm sure it is somewhere, but definitely, yes, something, learning by doing. And it's tough. It's tough for sure.
There are the not so fun business times, though, too. I've been following, I guess there's a court case with another shade company. There are people who say the Shibumi Shades are loud at the beach, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. How do you deal with that part of it? Or is that just as much a learning experience as the success stories are?
Definitely a learning experience. Speaking to the copycats, Shibumi has had something like 41, 42 copycats over the years, and it's been a big learning experience. But we take our intellectual property rights very seriously, and we expect others to do the same. And so, that looks like working with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office to file for patents, design patents, utility patents, trademarks, trade dress, copyright, all of these things to try to protect our ideas and our invention. And then, it's really unfortunate, but when we have to go all the way, and it's not something we want to do, but when we have to escalate it all the way to a federal lawsuit to to defend what our intellectual property rights, we have to, and it's not fun for sure, but I think it's just one of those necessary things which we're required to do.
That's another one of those things, though, that I think, and tell me if I'm wrong, you just have to chalk up as part of doing business, experience of doing business, but also making sure you're covered and making sure you're protected, having a good attorney, having to make sure that you've got somebody whose job it is to protect you along the way.
That's right. Yeah, it's very important. And, having good counsel on our side has been extremely important and valuable to us. But, at the end of the day, we're just doing our best to build a business and a brand that beach-going families can be really proud of. And our goal is to develop the highest quality products and kind of the best on-beach user experience that we can. And that is our goal.
Okay, this may sound like it's a question out of right field, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Sure.
When people want to relax, oftentimes they go to the beach.
Mm-hmm.
Your product is on the beach. When you go to the beach to try to relax or just chill out for a weekend, can you, or are you always looking at, they don't have a shade. They don't have a shade.
Yeah, it's a great question. Instead of saying they don't have a shade and they don't have a shade, it's more like I want to make sure that everyone, who has a Shibumi is having a great experience, and I'm very focused on that, and Scott and Alex are as well. So, yes, going to the beach is not as relaxing as it used to be because I feel a great sense of responsibility to make sure that families are having a great time on the beach, and especially with their Shibumi. So what I end up doing is rather than just sitting under my Shibumi, I walk up and down the beach and say hello to folks and shake hands. And that has really been a cool thing to be able to develop more of a community and more relationships and build great friendships with people who I otherwise probably never would have met. And so that is a really gratifying thing to be able to meet folks out on the beach and get to know them and their families and their story. And that has been really rewarding.
So what does Dane do to chill out? What does Dane do to get away from things?
Yeah, I probably don't look like it, but I do like to work out a lot and, just hang out with friends, cook, go out to eat, stuff like that. So I do try to take time away. I listen to a lot of podcasts, so I'm grateful for you having me on the podcast as well.
A young entrepreneur out there listening today, as an experienced businessman, and I know you've probably gotten this question a lot when you speak to different groups, but what kinds of advice do you give to young entrepreneurs, that somebody who says, look, I have an idea, but I don't know if it's going to work? Mm-hmm. What do you tell them?
It's a good question. I think I think the best thing is just to start somewhere, maybe going back to that fail fast point. And if it's possible, trying to get feedback from prospective customers on what they, think about the idea or think about the product. But if it's possible, and again, every business is different, but trying to come up with a kind of prototype, even if it's rudimentary, to start to use it and learn, I think is really a good first step.
What's next for the Shibumi Shade? I know that you came out with the mini.
That's right.
So what's next? What are you thinking about now? What's on your drawing board?
Yeah, we also, late this past year, we came out with the kind of next generation version of the Shibumi Shade. So now the canopy is made from ocean-bound recycled plastic bottles, which means plastic bottles that are very close to the ocean that are collected there, typically overseas where they don't have great recycling infrastructure set up, and then they're melted down and then turned into the threads, which are then made from, which our canopy is made from. So we're really excited about that. It's also quieter, to your point, that the Shibumi Shade is wind powered, and so it is going to flap. But how the canopy is constructed does make a difference in that sound, and so we've made a major leap forward there, which we're excited for people to experience this summer. Beyond the core products of the Shibumi and the Shibumi Mini, we are very excited about our product pipeline. So I can't say specifically what those things are yet, but we are going to
Oh,
launch.
come on, Dane. Give us a little hint.
Okay, I'll get the hint is that we want to continue to focus on the beach and make the beach experience better. So other things that you would take to the beach for your beach day, that's where we're focused currently. So you'll see one of those products coming out this spring, and then another one a bit later as well. But then we have a product pipeline after that. But really focusing on the beach again to try to make everyone's beach experience better and better.
You have mentioned several times the product experience. You have mentioned several times getting messages and answering messages. I have read and I've heard you speak that you try to answer or at least respond to all of the messages that you get, either yourself or Scott or Alex. You still do that now? Is that main priority, to touch your audience in some way of communicating with them?
100%. Yeah. So when we started Shibumi for those first several years, anyone who bought a Shibumi, Scott, Alex, or I would personally call them from our cell phone. So we called the first about 7,000 customers and just said, hey, John, thanks so much for your order. We're so grateful. This is who I am and who we are. I'm curious how you heard about us. Where do you go to the beach? And, if anything, if there's anything that I can do to help, or if anything goes wrong, please feel free to call me. I'm happy to help. And then as our sales grew, we weren't able to call that many people, in a day. And so then we switched over to sending a personalized text message, again, from our personal cell phones. And so we texted the first 20,000 folks who ordered a Shibumi. And it was just so great to be able to keep that connection, directly with us and the beach-going families as well. And so it was so great to get so many photos of people being out on the beach and they're proud with, sending us photos and so forth. So that has been a really great thing that we still get, tons of messages from that. But yeah, certainly we, absolutely respond to any and all customer messages. And that is a very important part of our brand as well.
No, I think it's a great thing that you don't take those messages and you don't take those communications for granted
Right.
with your customers. You've been asked in every one of the interviews that I've seen, and I've saved it for the very last question, but I feel I wouldn't be doing my job for those who don't know. Shibumi, the name itself, there's a historical part of it, but there's also a personal side for the three of you, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's a fun common thread or double meaning. And so first, Shibumi is a design concept that talks about the elegance of simplicity, which we feel like really fits to the Shibumi Shade product, but also how we want to make the beach experience better by making high quality products that are simple and easy to use and kind of lighten the load when heading to the beach. And it's also the name of a very, very small apartment complex of 7 apartment units in Chapel Hill, where Alex and I first lived together. We're older, and then a couple years behind, Scott lived as well. The apartment is called Shibumi, and so that is even where we first heard of the word. So it's a fun double meaning for us.
Yeah, I think that's so cool that you've, pardon the pun, weaved that into the name of the product and your personal experience, and also that historical experience as well. I love success stories, and you and Scott and Alex sure have one with the Shibumi Shade. Congratulations, Dane, on all your success. A true North Carolina success story. I know you're tremendously busy. I appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you so much, John. I really appreciate you having me and us.
A big thank you to Dane Barnes for sparing some of his very valuable time and joining us for this season 7 debut episode. And congratulations to Dane, his brother Scott, and their best friend Alex for all they have accomplished so far with the Shibumi Shade. Now, before we go, I'd like to ask you a favor. Please follow and subscribe to the One-on-One with John Evans podcast on whatever app you use to listen to your favorite shows. And if you would be so kind, please leave us a rating or a review. We do care what you think about our interviews, and the more feedback we have from friends like you, the higher we'll be listed on the apps, the better chance we'll have of bringing in even more new listeners. I'm John Evans. Thanks for joining us as we launch Season 7 of One-on-One.